cheers to you, fella.
And you, brother.
Now, you know you're in an indoor cricket centre when you're drinking red wine out of a plastic glass and it's not Pinot Noir, it's Merlot.
Is it?
Yeah.
Cheers, brother.
All good, mate. Thanks for doing this, brother.
Pleasure.
You're the man.
Pleasure.
How's that wrist, bro? How's that hand?
Yeah, it's actually all right. It was pretty painful yesterday, obviously, when it happened. It was pretty painful, but...
How did you do it?
I was fielding at leg, and the ball hit me. Caught the ball with my right hand, was diving towards the stumps, let go of the ball, hit the stumps, effected an amazing run out, to be fair. But as I did that, the batsman was tripping over. And both hands are sliding across the deck like that. The batsman's tripping over, his back comes in and hits the outside edge of my hand, turns my wrist over, just as he lands on it. And this guy's affectionate nickname is Yogi Bear, because he's a little bit rotund, if you will. And like a human airbag, he sort of came down and hit the back of my wrist, and that was when the thumb went one way and my hand went the opposite way. And there we go. So no broken bones.
Well, that's a good sign.
Just a lack of tendons and ligaments on bones.
Yeah, and this tournament's over, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going well too.
Yeah, you've been training hard?
Yeah. Been putting in heaps of hours. We do 3 or 4 45-minute sessions a week now. So in that 45-minute session will be just repetitive work on a single skill. So whether it's slapping onto the stumps from leg with my right hand, that's 45 minutes. Just that. Repetitive. It's great. It's great. I mean, you feel a lot more comfortable so much faster, when you do that. And,
have you been playing club cricket during the season as well?
Indoor?
Yeah.
Yeah, bits and bobs. My onion allergy, here's a good little snippet for the South Africans. I know what they're like with food poisoning. My onion allergy just means that if I eat some onions, I'm out for 3 to 5 days. And so that's affected my ability to play the full season. So I played, I think, 2 out of the 5 Super League rounds. Okay. So, but that was fun.
Yeah. And so I spoke in the last podcast, I spoke to Victor and Victor Davies about how much hard work he'd been putting in the training, because I know both him and Lulu have been putting a lot of hours over the course of this whole year, pretty much, and really getting themselves prepared for that Trans-Tasman series. We saw some amazing results out of his hard work, and I think it's fair to say, at the moment, I think he's probably the most, well, at least the most valuable player in the world. I think you could have in your side, and the way he played. So it's amazing how when you do put in that preparation, it's always been a big key for me. When you're leading up to something, or you do really want to give yourself best into a performance, that preparation, you can't do anything, whether it's indoor cricket, business, or whatever, a speech, podcast, unless you've done that preparation, you really struggle.
Yeah, it's critical. And preparation gives me a number of things. It gives me knowledge about my own game. It gives me knowledge just about my presence on the court. And from the knowledge comes my confidence. You know me, mate, I'm a confidence player, and so knowledge is really, really important to me. And so my application to the game is I like to understand the theory of the movement, the theory of what I'm trying to achieve first, and then I go out and try and get the application right, or the execution of the skill set. And that's where the confidence comes. And so that repetition training I mentioned earlier, man, I get just a ridiculous amount of confidence out of that. I just feel like when I'm on court, I can do anything. And that's a powerful force to stop, as you well know. Yeah,
well, yeah. It's strange when you say that, because there's always been a half of my game I've always been in that mode, and the other half of my game I haven't transferred that over mentally. It's really weird. I've never even thought about it at all, and ever since I first started playing men's cricket a long time ago, I've always had the backing of my players around me, guys who are better than me, looking back at me and going, hey, you can do the job. We know you can do the job. We back you. Just do what you do. And so whenever I've been at the top of my mark bowling, I've never had any doubts at all about my game.
Yep.
But when it's come to batting, I've never transferred that confidence. Even if I was playing well, or in patches and hitting the ball well and feeling like I can really dominate, and not until recently have I even thought about transferring that confidence over. Quite strange.
Why do you think that is? Is it like a deliberate application of theoretical thought around that? Like, is it a conscious way of applying your thinking to your game?
I think age. I think when you're older, it just naturally comes. You're a lot clearer and calmer in your thought patterns, and probably less testosterone flying around the body,
That's a scientific
muddying
fact.
the waters. Well, yeah. But also, while I had the backing of the players I was around back in the day, amazing indoor cricketers who took me under their wing and gave me all the confidence in the world with the ball, they were equally, conversely, equal the opposite with my batting. So they never, pats on the back and things like that, but their body language and all of those little signs along the way, it's like, just not too sure if you make a mistake that, you just see it in them. And so you become very confidentless about that, and you're, I think that affected my batting game quite a bit early on.
Yeah. You see, I was probably the opposite. I mean, the first indoor cricket game I ever played was with Billy, Graham Murray, and he's the guy that got me into indoor. I was 15. We'd played against each other in outdoor for a number of years, and it was always the sort of Billy and Dinga show. To be fair, he dominated it. But on the 1 out of 10 times that I returned fire, I let him know all about it. So we had this sort of head-to-head thing going into, and then I ended up going to Wellington High School where Billy had always gone, and he got me into indoor. And I'll never forget the very first game we played out in the hut for like a cult side against a hut cult side, and I batted with Bill. And every single time I hit the ball, you just hear Graham Murray, this legend, screaming at me, going, "Great shot, Dinga, great shot." I mean, it's impossible not to get confidence with a bat in your hand when you've got a Graham Murray screaming at you, "Great shot, Dinga, great shot." So it was basically the opposite for me, literally the opposite. I mean, I always had a lot of very, very supportive, really good mates that I played indoor with in those first few years, and ever since I've been playing, and they were always very good at giving you pats on the back and giving you confidence in that. But the reality is, it's really hard for people to give you too much confidence at bowling when you're rubbish at bowling, and I was literally rubbish at bowling, and so I appreciated some of the fake confidence I got, but it was fake. Yeah.
You've got physically, you've got a fantastic setup to be a bowler. Did you try and go down the get coaching path and develop your action, get stronger? And
no, and I think it was just because I never had enough confidence in my own bowling to think that I was a good bowler. Like if you saw me back in my backyard cricketing heyday, I would tape up the side of a tennis ball, and nobody could face it. But it's just backyard cricket, right? You get to an indoor cricket ball, it's a tennis ball wrapped in leather. I can get that to swing both ways, but it's just the pace for some reason. I've never felt like I could be a fast bowler. Never once felt that, so I've never really tried. I remember Rob Boyston. He was the first coach that I ever had that sort of pulled me aside and said basically what you just said. He said, "Ding, you've got the build for a fast bowler. You should be able to get it down there at a rate of knots. I want you to go and give it a nudge." And I remember first couple of balls, I was just trying to speed it up slowly. Andre Adams was there with that training and giving us some insights, pretty good insights from that man. And yeah, I think it was about fourth or fifth ball, and I felt like I just about snapped my spine. And so, I think it was about at that point I thought, actually, no, I'm just going to do the old dibbly-dobblies, the cutters, and the swinging it both ways, and just leave it at that. So I'm happy with that, though. I'm confident with my bowling now. I know inside and out. I know what I need to bowl to which batsman. So I'm really confident with it now. But mate, it's taken 20 years. 20 years.
I've seen guys who are I need to say this with a lot of respect, but guys who are slightly more limited with the ball and indoor, who really, when they're used really well and they're in better teams, and you've got strike power around you, become really effective bowlers, because you're seen as a target. I have to get runs off you. Like if you look at our harbour side at the moment, we've got probably 2 bowlers that might be in our top 8 that the opposition have to score runs off, because if they don't, the runs really aren't in too many other areas in our bowling lineup unless we get it wrong. Yeah. So that puts a hell of a lot of pressure on the batting guys that face those bowlers to have to really go at them. And if you set it up right and the bowlers bowl in really good areas, you're still developing really good opportunities off those bowlers, and I'd suggest that you're, probably more of more of a bowler than those two bowlers that we have, simply because of your height, and you probably do move it around a little bit more than them, but you definitely can still create chances. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't run in and try and get a wicket. I run in and try and bowl dot balls and put guys under pressure. My bowling approach is very much one of creating pressure. And that's why I love being in a team with somebody like yourself, because I know that I can build up pressure. So if I know I'm bowling before a Colsey or a Crooksey or a Graham Murray or the like, I know that I can go in and create pressure and put some dot balls on these guys, because these guys will be knowing that you guys are going to be bowling soon, so they're going to be looking at me like you just mentioned before. And I love going in and bowling at guys like that. I mean, there was a very memorable final, provincial final against Auckland, where I had to bowl the last over to Crooksey. And there was a massive amount of pressure on both of us, but I was just running in and bowling little off-cutters, and they were just gently hitting him in the knee, and it was tough. It was tough to bowl those balls. Man, I was getting abused on the back net, and Crooksey was getting abused for not hitting the ball. But poor bugger.
Where was the game?
That was in Wellington. Yeah, we came out on top. That was
so I've said this in a previous podcast with Victor. My memory for games, my memory recall for games is very poor, to the point where I was concerned about my memory recall, that I was perhaps going down a pretty bad path.
Okay.
But when you talk about games and start giving me details, I can then remember it.
Yeah, to be fair, Colsey, you've played in quite a high number of games. So, as have I, but you've probably played, I don't know, twice as many rep games as I have. In terms of non-international stuff, you would have played 50 times more internationals than I have. So that kind of makes sense to me. I mean, my memory's not that great, but there are games that you just remember.
Yeah,
and you remember them for reasons. So getting to bowl the last game of a provincial final and your team wins it, it's a pretty memorable memory for me. Because you don't get very many opportunities like that. I certainly don't, or didn't.
Yeah.
And so you just, that stuff's in here like a memory-led tattoo, if you will. So
yeah,
I love it.
So you first started playing for Wellington indoor, didn't you?
Yeah.
And that's when you were 15?
Yeah.
So you're playing Colts.
Yeah.
Is that when? So what year was that? 92?
No, that would have been 93, 94.
93. So we would have come across each other then, or was I already playing men's?
I think you were playing men's there. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never played you in Colts.
Colts. Yeah, but it's when you came up into men's, we started playing each other quite a bit.
Yeah.
You guys dominated me.
No, there was, to be fair, there were two games, and there were only two, because we played each other quite a bit. There were only two games where there was probably some domination. And a mate, a very good friend of mine's name by the name of Luke Woods was a bowler that enjoyed bowling to you.
I was just bunny. But that's when I couldn't bat. I couldn't believe I couldn't bat. I didn't really have that many skills, but you guys were so like over the moon every time you got me out. It's like, come on.
That's because you were Guy Coleman. You still are, but I mean, it was because you were Guy Coleman. And I mean, we played a North Islands game in Palmerston North where we batted first. You guys absolutely wiped the floor with us, and we got 28.
I do remember that.
And then we defended it. I mean, that was one of the greatest games of indoor cricket I'd ever played.
Yeah, it was a beauty.
It was phenomenal. The bowling and fielding in that game was like I've never seen since. There were 16 demons on that court. It was awesome. It was just awesome.
I really miss 8-ball over cricket. I had a great chat with Matt Henderson about this, and it's I've got a bit of a beef. I reckon we should be switching back to 8-ball overs, maybe for internationals and for junior cricket, so the Super League. But when it comes to tournaments, I totally get why they want to do 6-ball over cricket, just because of time, and you want as many players involved as possible, as many teams and grades. So you've got 3 days to fill, 4 courts.
Yeah.
So that's just a no-brainer to me.
Well, that said though, Kelsey, what about this? I mean, over in Australia, the tournaments run for a week. And so, I've never played state champs, but I would assume that the state champs are 8-ball overs. Is that correct?
I don't think so. I think they're all 6-ball overs. I'd love to play state champs. That's one of my regrets. I really wish I'd sort of made some noises about getting over there. Be Masters level now, I suppose. It could still happen. Could still happen.
Never say never.
Yeah.
I'd still love to play.
Yeah, could still happen. I'm really envious of, Matt Henderson especially, being able to, make those noises and get over there and experience it. And Tough cricket for a week, eh?
Yeah.
Tough cricket.
What about Matty Latham? Goes and plays for ACT.
Yeah.
Picks up a title.
And then said he wanted to play for Australia.
Yep. What a guy. Yeah. So, he's a good boy.
He is.
No, I just think you never say never, mate. Never say never. Life's not a race.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look, you never know the opportunities that might come up, and
all the ones you make.
Just experiencing that, like, you know, the end of that Trans-Tasman, even enduring it as well. You know, having a chat with the Aussie guys. You know that, you know, they're good lads, man. They're really good lads, and they work really hard. You can see the confidence they've got in each other, the confidence they've got in their own game, and as you should at international level. If you make that Aussie side, you've made it for a reason. I don't think too many guys get in there without hard work, or as if you've deserved it because there's, you know, 5 guys knocking on the door for your spot, for every spot on the court, pretty much. So, you know, those guys put in a lot of hard work, but that hard work really comes from those tough championships they play. And like you say, it's over a week, so you've got to be fit. Put in that preparation.
It's kind of a weaker pressure though, Colsey. I mean, if you're playing the state champs, this is from talking to Maddie and Hendo. But if you're playing those state champs, you don't get to have a ball off.
No.
You know, playing in our nationals here, every now and again you get away with having a ball off. But from what those guys have told me, and from what I've seen, and talking to people like Steve Hart and Rob Boyston, and God, there's a whole list of people that are very familiar with the state champs. You just don't get that time. You don't get that time to be off. You have to be on every time, every ball. You have to be ready every ball. You have to execute properly every ball. And if you don't, you're on the bench. Because there's a guy sitting on the bench right now that will execute every ball.
That's right.
And so if you're playing a state champs for a week at that level, you're pretty well prepared for an international series. No matter whether it's open, men's masters, or whatever the grade, it doesn't matter. You're prepared for an international series, and I think that's where, you know, we need to start either mimicking. I think some of those things, some of those creating pressure cooker environments. You know, a week-long championship for nationals, it makes the prize that much greater to win. If you're going away for a week, would you expect that guys are going to work a lot harder leading into that competition, knowing they're going to be away for a week, knowing that you have to be successful for a week, not for 3 days, for a week? You know what I mean? So we're going off to South Africa in 4 weeks, or 3.5 weeks now, and that's a week-long tournament. You know, guys in the New Zealand team are used to playing in a week-long tournament. Fortunately, I mean, it's 2 games a day, from what I understand. And at the moment in this tournament, for us at a Masters level, we've just been playing 4 games a day. So in terms of fitness, it's more intense and it's over a shorter period of time here. But it's not international level. So there's a big difference.
I just don't think it's going to happen. I just, you know, I tend to agree with you, but I just think, I don't know how the Aussies get away with it. Like, personally, getting time off, you know, like jobs and being able to get that time off, and then you've got World Cups and Trans-Tasman every 2nd year or 3rd year, and, you know, families and kids and all that. You know, you tend to, you know, you struggle to get that time off. A week-long tournament, like I think it'd be amazing for the sport to be able to do that. And you're right, you know, for those guys that really love it, and they'd probably be available, but I think you'd get a lot of guys that just can't make it. I mean, there's guys who haven't come to this simply because they've forked out a load of money for tournaments previous ended last year, and they're going over to a World Cup this year, so they can't make this one or whatever, and it makes it really, really hard. And the costs. Yeah. The Australian guys get funded. I don't know if you know this, but Cricket Australia, each province now, so Queensland, New South Wales, are actually throwing money at the indoor cricket players to make sure that they're not getting paid, but they're getting, you know, it's free to be able to go away and play tournaments. Not paying for kit, not paying for hotels, not paying for minivans, not paying for the bananas, you know, waters and all that sort of stuff. These guys are getting funded now, and that gives it a lot more motivation for those guys to be able to, you know, just makes it that much easier.
Yeah, see, Colsey, in my view, that's just smart. That's just smart because I think for a long time in New Zealand there's been maybe a bitter rivalry. Not that it's been a rivalry per se, but a little bit of bitterness between indoor and outdoor. Like, I could go and talk to a bunch of outdoor coaches who'll say indoor cricket's really, really bad for your game, which is complete crap. Indoor cricket helps guys to learn how to control a swinging ball, teaches guys how to swing a ball. It gives guys confidence for in-close fielding. It gives guys confidence for accuracy of skill execution. It gives guys a lot of confidence for batting, hitting down-ups. That's the opposite of hitting catches in outdoor as far as I'm concerned. And so how could any of that be bad for your outdoor game? Because it's not. Now, the Australian boys, they know that through and through. So it makes a lot of sense for there to be funding, and it makes a lot of sense. It's been a bugbear of mine for so long that indoor cricket New Zealand and outdoor cricket New Zealand have not been able to, and they're making great ground now, which is fantastic. Otto's done a great job there, but the fact that it's taken this long for something so, and this is only my opinion, but for something that is so straightforward that needed to happen, for the two bodies to come together, to work together, and to make our game overall much better, it's just taken far too long. I mean, if we want to be a good cricketing country from an outdoor point of view, and to be fair, we are. What are we, second in tests at the moment? We're going okay. We're punching above our weight. But we could be so much better. And I don't think that we are hungry enough to be so much better. I think we're almost satisfied with the fact that we constantly punch above our weight. Good old the Kiwis, there's only 4 million of us, and there's, 19 million Australians or something? Which is part of the reason why you can have a week-long tournament, because there's enough numbers to pick from. There are enough people there to play minority sports and to have it to play it at a higher level, because there's just a bunch. There's millions more of them than there are of us.
I couldn't agree more.
But we get too satisfied too often, right? And so I just think, coming back to the concept of trying things, like my business approach to so many problems is to just be agile. And what I mean by that is, to be agile, you have to be prepared to fail, because we always fail. We're human. That's kind of what we do. Failing is not a bad thing. Failing is an opportunity to learn, and it's part of how we evolve, right? And so if you're going to fail, because we are, then just fail fast. Don't fail slowly. Just do it quickly, and do it at a low cost. Well, what about this? What about, we've got everybody here in Auckland for Nationals putting just a little questionnaire around. If we were to have Nationals over a week to try and raise the level of our sport, to try and give it some profile, to try and put players under a pressure cooker situation, not for a day or two, or a game or two, but for a week, would you want to participate? And at least ask the players. Because it's real easy to ask a question. Whatever the answer is okay. But to not know the answer because we didn't ask the question, that's not cool. That's just not. That's not a smart way of running a sport. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying for a second that the people who run our sport are not smart or idiots or anything like that at all. I'm just saying that there are so many other options that we could consider, and we just need to be open-minded and be prepared to experiment. Because life's not about right or wrong, it's just about experimentation. Again, that's how we learn, that's how we evolve, it's how we adapt, it's how we get better.
You should be involved.
I'd love to be.
Well, I'll tell you right now that Tony Watkins has done an amazing job, and he has spent so much of his energy and his time, for the most part, free. Well, he's not getting paid for what he does. And, being the role he does for New Zealand indoor cricket, and then goes and manages the New Zealand side men's at the same time during a Trans-Tasman, organises everything for them. All the players said that he was just absolutely amazing, and I don't, I'm not surprised. Yeah. He needs a hand. He needs some help, and I know for a fact that in a few months' time, that is going to become a reality. And if people aren't prepared to put their hand up and assist, or maybe even take over because of his new leads in life, where he leads and goes forward, we'll find ourselves backwards again, and that's not good after all the hard work that guys like himself and others on the board as well, to be fair, have put in. The coaching thing, I've just sniggered and laughed at it for years, because I've been so heavily involved in outdoor cricket to a reasonable level as well as indoor, and you just hear these constant comments from club coaches, even first class coaches in outdoor cricket, that say these things about indoor cricket, and all they're saying is that it's a reflection on them and their ability as a coach. They don't know our game, and they actually don't know outdoor cricket then, because they don't see the similarities. If you've got batters, good batters in indoor cricket, learning how to play late and straight, get the ball, hit the springs, then how is that bad for outdoor cricket? I don't get that. If you've got bowlers wanting to bowl really quick, good areas, accurate, and learning to swing the ball and seam the ball, how is that not bad? How is that bad for outdoor cricket as a bowler? I don't get that either. So it's proven now. If you speak to Robbie Kerr now, the women's game, it's a proven pathway to first-class outdoor cricket. Now, I don't need to start rattling off the names that are playing for the White Ferns at the moment. Amazing cricketers that have come through from indoor cricket.
And this is just a tiny little aspect of that, but the amount of pride I get when I'm sitting on the couch at home and me and my partner Alana, we're watching the women's cricket team, and I'm like, I've toured with her.
So good.
I've played cricket with her.
Yeah.
I've watched her play cricket. She's amazing. You watch her bowl this. She can bowl an inducker and stuff like that. And my partner Alana's sort of looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, man, these girls, they play indoor cricket. They execute brilliantly. They learn and they evolve so well. And to have that, and Kirby, he's one of the smartest brains that I know around this game. And for him to identify that, and then to ensure that becomes a pathway for women in this country is just awesome.
I love watching our women. I think they're so talented. They're amazing cricketers. They're really well led. I get some really smart coaches on board as well. Katrina Withers, I forgot that wrong, I'm sure. She's ex-White Fern player, was coaching them for years and did a great job. They're fantastic, and she just led them into this next phase. And I agree, man. I think they're amazing to watch.
And I can't help but think, the men's game could learn so much from the women's game. We could, and this is why the men's game is in the position it's in at the moment. But I just believe that, watching some of these young players this weekend, some of the talent that we have in this nationals is just, again, it fills me with a lot of pride. I love this game. I had 4 years off from this, and it was, it was just 4 tough years for a bunch of reasons. But one of the biggest reasons was I wasn't here. This is something that I'm good at. When you do something that you're good at, you should keep doing it because it's a really good thing for you mentally. It's a really good thing for your confidence in general. But the thing I love the most about this sport is the camaraderie. I remember the first time I faced you, there was not a second that I ever thought that we'd become good mates, because I was worried that I was about to eat an indoor cricket ball. And it was a sincere fear of mine. And so, at that level of, well, I guess it was a lack of maturity, and it was the weird things that you think when Guy Coleman's about to bowl his first ever delivery at you, but it was just some of the weird stuff that goes around in a young guy's mind. But now, the camaraderie, I love the fact that I get to turn up to a tournament now. You break your wing, and you get 700 messages on Facebook. People are concerned and stuff. It's just,
I was gutted for you, man.
The value that gives a person, the sense of worth that it gives you is such a cool thing.
So many people are understanding what you're trying to achieve this year, and that we understand the work. I mean, I've been a little bit closer because we've been on the WhatsApp. I see all the stuff that the guys are doing. I've been privileged to be a part of that still, even though I'm not going to be going. Hardy was pretty keen for me to stay involved in that. So I see the work that's being put in, and you're right, man. I mean, your attitude's great where you're just saying these things happen, and just take it on the chin and just hope that we'll be all right in 3 weeks, But it's just, you just feel really. You're right. I mean, I wouldn't have felt like this 20 years ago. I would have been putting the finger up, going, well. Now, you're great mates with a guy, and you want him to succeed, you want him to achieve, and see rewards for all that hard work, And I sincerely hope that it all comes right for you, man. Something tells me things are going to be okay.
Yeah, me too. Look, and I think the approach to these sorts of things. I've been in this boat before, and I didn't get to go to South Africa the last time I wanted to, and that was because of a bung shoulder. And
is that in 13?
Yeah,
2014,
yeah.
13.
When we won it,
yeah, 13, I think. Yeah.
And and that was pretty tough. That was tough because I knew that we had a chance going into that, and I thought, right, this is my golden opportunity to become a world champ. And I'm so stoked for the guys because they went on and they got to achieve that dream. You know, at the beginning of the season when I started playing, it was the first time I got my shirt out from that tour, and I unwrapped it and I put it on. I thought, this is my motivation. There's unfinished business for me, and so, you know, when this happens, I've been down this road before, and I have two very clear choices. One is I can do what I did last time, and I can go to some pretty dark places and spend a year or two feeling sorry for myself because, you know, poor me, I had some bad luck. Two, I can think the brain's got the ability to heal or help healing, and I can just believe that this is going to be okay, that this is going to be fine, and I can give all my concentration now, including the antioxidants and this fine red wine that you put up in front of me.
She tastes quite good. I'm okay with it. Full body.
It sits on my palate well.
It's all right. Good
know,
notes.
but all of the notes in there, you know, all of those things are good for me, and it's going to help me heal. So my concentration now is purely on healing. I'm going to do everything I need to do for this thing to be healed, and it's going to be okay. It's half the pain there today that was there yesterday. So no, it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And I don't need my left hand anyway, so it's okay.
Okay, that's cool. Your first tour, 2006.
Yep.
And I had the privilege of being with you on that. That was with Rob Boyston as well. He's a coach. He'd wanted to make way with the Australian setup and didn't quite get his chance because Ross Gregory is such an amazing coach and couldn't see his way. He goes all right. I'd love to chat to Ross, actually. It'd be amazing. Apparently, he'd be quite keen. Talking to a couple of the Aussie guys would be quite cool. So maybe we can make that happen sometimes. But yeah, Boise was great. He brought that Australian flavour, didn't he? And some really good insights, had some slightly different ways. He was quite encouraging. Yeah. I don't remember too much about him, funnily enough, but he was encouraging, and he didn't really have a negative thing to say at all. You know, he was just structured, and this is the way we need it, guys. And do you remember too much from that tour?
I remember a lot from that tour.
Yeah.
I remember most of that tour like it was yesterday because I was surrounded by the likes of yourself and you know, Crooksy and Matt Henderson and these guys that I'd just been, you know, fighting against in provincials and for once felt like I was actually starting to hold my own. For once that season I was starting to think, actually, Dinga, you belong here, you know, and again when you've got a Graham Murray and you've got a Lee Kelly who are in your side, and you know, I didn't really have much in the way of coaching before Boise with indoor other than Graham Murray and Lee Kelly, and I don't say that disrespectfully to those two, but they were player coaches as opposed to a specialist coach.
Focused,
you know? Focused. And so and you know, the fact that I ever got into a New Zealand team is absolutely thanks to Billy and Lee Kelly, 100%. But when I got there, one of the first things Boise ever said to me was, Dinga, when you look at indoor cricket ball, what I want you to look at is not the ball, not the seam, but an individual piece of cotton that is a part of the seam on the indoor cricket ball. And I've never forgotten that piece of advice because whenever I've gotten into a batting slump, I've always remembered that single piece of advice, and every single time it's pulled me out of it. Because all of a sudden it looks like a beach ball coming down the wicket at me because I'm not looking at the ball, I'm looking for a tiny bit on the ball. You know, and just so those sorts of insights and the very deliberate way that Boise coaches and his encouragement, and then when you're away from the game, when you're not in indoor cricketing mode, or I need to be concentrating or thinking about what I'm about to do and so on and so forth, and you're just in the car, Boise's got the greatest sense of humour. The stuff that comes out of that man's
flooded.
You're
flooded, mate.
Flooded.
Brilliant.
Like it's just awesome. You know, I loved it. I loved every moment of getting coached by Boise, and I learnt so much. I felt like I learnt in those few years with Boise as much as I did in the previous 12 years with the guys.
You and Tim Paps, like even Tim was our captain, but both of you were absolute central to our culture on that tour. Did you feel that?
I didn't feel it personally. I mean,
did you know it?
No idea. No idea.
You're amazing. You're amazing in your culture drive. Like you really are. Like now to me it's a no-brainer because of the human you've become. But on your first international tour, and you were not just because of your physical presence, but because of your humor and your confidence, your other guys, your positiveness that you bring across. You just became the centralized figure. If you ask the other guys on that tour, they'd say exactly the same thing. You know, we had strange cats like Mousy, who was just amazing, clown. He was superb. He was so funny, and just added a different flavour to that. But yeah, seriously, like you know, in between Tim Paps's NRL commentary, that rugby league commentary he brought out, which was just amazing, had us on the floor stitches. But you really were. You looked like you were someone who just went, well, I've just worked out every single way I can contribute to this squad, and I'm going to do it. And everyone just looked back and went, well, this guy's in for a start. He's the man, and you just embraced. And it's a great way, and it's something that I learned because I wasn't like that. And I really, you know, if I wasn't close to people on a personal level, it took a while for me to connect, I think is probably the best word, and felt really, I was that person that really worried about what other people thought about the moves that I made. I tried to say funny things in the wrong time, and you know, and I still do that, and now I don't apologise for it. It's just me, and I accept myself for it. But back then I was really worried about that, and it definitely detracted from things. But I got a huge amount of batting confidence in that tour because I was batting with Chicken.
Yeah.
And he was a superstar with a bat back then. Oh, he's a superstar with everything, but he was an amazing batter. I thought he was a form batter of that year, and I got to bat with a guy. And I just thought, well, if I've been put with him, again, it's that confidence from your leadership group. And I thought, if they're putting me with him, they're batting me third, then they really back me. They really think I can do something, you know? And it was just an amazing mindset. Yeah. I don't know how Chicken felt batting with me. He said it was great. But look, I've batted with a couple of really special people. I'm batting with one at the moment in my club, and we've got an amazing relationship with the bat, and I'll never forget that. But Chicken was special, man. It was just three tests with him, man. It's awesome.
That's pretty cool, from 3 tests. But I mean, they're tests. You know, and that was, we were from memory, you know, an over away from, and a few balls away from being the first NZ team to win a test series.
The most unlikely finish in that test series you would ever pick.
Yeah. And it was just, you know, that. So what you were saying earlier about the culture stuff, mate, look, I had no idea. And that's just, I learned at a very young age. I was 13. It was my first ever speech that I had to do as a 13-year-old. It's in my class. And I'll never forget it. I had to do the speech, and I'd spent a week writing the speech, and I just felt it was terrible. And I stood up in front of my class, and I went to go read it, and I was so nervous. I was so scared about having to do the speech that my eyes watered over. I couldn't read a word that was on that page. Could not read a word. And I didn't want to wipe the tears away, because then I was going to have 30 guys taking the piss out of me for years to come.
You had a boys' school?
That I cried just before I had to do a speech. So I actually pretended that I pissed myself and had to walk out and sort of nip out to the toilet. And that
was less humiliating if you...
Well, at the time, this is what my panicking mind told me. But here's the thing. What it actually taught me was that one of the quick experiences when I was Master of Ceremonies at the first wedding I ever emceed. And Eddie and Janet were very good friends of mine, asked me to MC, and when I announced their name, I announced Edit and Janny. And I was like, oh my God, and everybody started laughing. I thought, right, just let me try that again. And I said it again. Second time round. I was only probably 3 or 4 Steinlagers deep at this stage.
It's not enough, sir.
Mate, it probably wasn't. And so at that stage, I remember just saying to the crowd, and it was a key learning lesson, it re-taught me what I learnt when I was 13. And that is, if you can take the piss out of yourself at the very moment where you're worried about what other people think, then you don't have to worry about what other people think. And so I said to everybody in that crowd at that wedding, I said, look, can you just give me a couple of seconds? I'm just going to nip out the back, kick my own ass, get myself into shape. I'll come back here and I'm going to deliver a speech that you're not prepared for. And I got a standing ovation. And that was the moment. It was like a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
And so getting back to that tour of Australia, I just remember thinking, in order to get people to like you, you have to be prepared to take the piss out of yourself, and therefore if you're openly not concerned about what people think about you respectfully, from a humorous point of view, just from a getting along with other people point of view, then other people tend to find it easy to get along with you, you know, and that's so it's interesting that you give me that feedback, because I had no idea about that.
That's Kiwis for you as well, man. Like you could stuff up and say sorry, and everyone just loves you. You know, like it's you could make the worst mistake, you know, bar murdering someone, and say sorry, and then everyone's like, oh, you know, like it's okay, man. No worries about it. You know, we'll be sweet. Don't worry about it. I remember the great point. I had a outdoor tour down to Invercargill. I still get given grief about this.
It's because you went to Invercargill.
Well, it was for Auckland Bees, and it was over New Year's. So we left on Boxing Day, I think maybe 27th, and we had a game on New Year's Day, and it was at Queen's Oval down there, beautiful park. It was for Auckland Bees against Otago Bees, and played with some, you know, significant players, and wasn't expecting to play. So of course I'm out New Year's Eve with a few of the lads, and a couple of those lads are high profile, you know, close to first class or playing first class, and just dropped down, and they decided they'd go out. So I thought, well, you know, I think I'm going to be playing tomorrow. I'm not the next best bowler in the team, so you know, I'll head out. Had a great night. Rocked up in the morning. Chris Drum, who was to go on and play for New Zealand, pulled up lane in the warm-ups, and Colsey, you're in, mate. And I was just probably not in the greatest shape to go and play a pretty high level of outdoor cricket. Didn't do too badly, none for 52 or something off 10, but didn't bowl that well. Had a bit of a grumpy attitude as well with it, and we lost, and I just thought, you know what, I've let these guys down so badly. I got a few sideways looks at me during the day from the other guys, and I probably deserved it. And so I thought, right, I've got to do something here. So I went up to the bar. This is back in the day with the wooden crates. Yeah, Invercargill.
Yeah.
Got a mixed crate of beers. Went downstairs, bang, straight in the middle of the dressing room. All was forgiven. Boys were all over it. I just thought, thank God for that. We're in. We're okay. Good days forgiven. Yeah. So you're right, man. Like, Kiwis are very quick to just, hey, you're humbled. You know, you realise what's happened. You've made the mistake. Let's just get on with it and move on. You know.
Yeah, it's a very cool part of our culture.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's especially easy to do that when somebody's willing to put their hand up. I think what pisses us off even more is when everybody knows somebody has made a mistake, and then not put their hand up. See, because the way that I look at mistakes is maybe too simple. But I try not to measure people as much on their actions anymore. I try to measure people on their intent. And so if somebody intentionally decided to do something stupid, that's a whole lot worse than somebody intending to do the right thing and then accidentally doing something stupid. Their application of their intention was wrong as opposed to their intention.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and that's getting back to that agile thing. You know, and when people make mistakes, it's all too easy for us to point the finger. But there's a couple of clear mistakes with just pointing the finger. And that's that whole approach to life, where life is about right or wrong. That's bollocks, man. And the reason for that is that if somebody makes a mistake, how often have you in your life, or anybody else, deliberately made that mistake? Because the outcome of mistakes is people feel bad, people feel let down, teammates, workmates, partners, you know. Unless that mistake is made intentionally, then it seems pretty low level for me to just go and point the finger at somebody for their poor actions. That to me just says, look, there's a learning opportunity. The learning opportunity is where that mistake was made. We need to understand what the intent behind the mistake was, and then help that person to understand what the what the outcomes of that action were. Because more often than not, when you approach somebody with that sort of approach, they actually start to go. First of all, you don't get their defences up. As soon as you go point the finger at somebody, it's human for us to get defensive, even when we clearly know sometimes when we're wrong. We still want to defend the heck out of whatever our action was. But I thought this, or you said that, or I thought that, as opposed to you give somebody the opportunity to just not get their defences up, and man, the opportunity for learning from a leadership point of view is massive. The opportunity for that person to learn from their mistakes, it now exists because they're not defensive and they're open to whatever the learning actually is. And you'll probably almost never find that person makes the same mistake again. And so, I remember that first tour. I didn't play a test against Australia, and Hendo and I, we played a game against the Colts. I've never actually asked Westy or Bots about the why I didn't play, and I probably would actually next time I see them, just because I'm interested to know.
Yeah.
Because we played a game against the Australian Colts. I'll never forget that. We had to travel for 7,500 hours north of Brisbane, which is bizarre on an Australian tour. They never normally make you do that. But we had to do that, and so we got up to the centre and we played this Australian Colt side. I don't think we got a wicket. We were the New Zealand men's side. I'm pretty sure we didn't get a wicket. They batted first. Then we had to go out and bat, and I remember Hendo and I were batting together, and probably one of the reasons we've got such a good relationship now is we were batting, and I don't think there was a single ball that didn't hit the wire in our partnership. It's probably the best I've ever batted. And there was this left armer. I can't remember his name. He was a young fella.
Yeah. The name will come to me.
Holy
cow. Yeah. He was an outdoor cricketer, and he ended up playing for Australian men's too.
Yeah. He could, just quietly.
Bugger.
He could get it down there at a fair rate of knots. And it was like the first time I ever faced Andre Adams. I'm not sure I actually hardly even saw the ball. I was just putting the bat there, and it was fortunate that indoor cricket teaches you to keep your elbow up, and they were just going into the wires, and I've never had such a young Australian guy hurl so much abuse at me, and it was well warranted. He was completely accurate with everything he was saying. I had no idea what I was doing, but so I don't know if Bots and Boisty saw that and thought Dinga got lucky there for 4 balls in a row, but. Yeah, so I'm keen to. I don't have any hard feelings about it, but talking about the mental side of the game, playing reasonably, or at least with bat, well in that game. Didn't have the greatest game against Queensland, I think, the following night, and then not playing a test for the World Cup afterwards the following year in the UK. I actually felt a little bit like an imposter at that stage.
Oh wow.
So it was an interesting thing because I had gone from being quite confident about being in the side to feeling almost a little bit like an imposter for being in the side just the following season, and it was such a bizarre mental difference.
Do you talk to Hendo much about not?
I remember
not playing that tour.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, because Hendo didn't play either.
No.
And I remember talking to him about it during the tour. It's probably best that I don't reinstate anything that was said then.
I know he struggled. I know he struggled with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the initial reaction for both of us was actually anger first,
right.
Frustration second, and for me,
it's understandable.
For me, that was I think it was just a little bit immature. I remember the night before we left, I went out to dinner with Billy and his beautiful wife Nick, and we were sitting there, and I sort of said to Bill, I said, mate, I'm going to Australia. This is the first time I've ever been in the New Zealand team, and what should I expect? And Billy was so right with the advice he gave me. He said, mate, just expect to go over there and play the way that you've played to get yourself into the team. Don't change a thing. And when I didn't play, the following year, I forgot Billy's advice. And for some reason, I didn't play anything like, I didn't even try to play the same way that I played to get into the side, and then that made the whole situation even worse.
Did you feel like you had to change, or you naturally just changed? You became more aggressive? How did you change?
No, I went into my shell. Right. Because I'm an aggressive player. As you know, I'm a confidence player. I don't care who bowls to me nowadays. if I'm feeling confident, I'm just going to walk down the track at you while you're running up at me, because it doesn't matter what you bowl to me when I'm in that mood. I'm going to hit it where I want to hit it, and so that disappeared. That whole World Cup, I didn't leave the popping tricks, and it's not that I'm reckless with that. It's just my confidence. The reason I walk and not run is because I'm always balanced, no matter what's bowled at me, and I'm always prepared. So that's why I walk and not run. Because I'm always balanced. So that's what, in my mind, that's how I tell myself I'm not reckless with that. But I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And every single ball when I was standing at the marker singing, I just feel like it doesn't matter what I bowled there, I'm going to get hit for two. You know, and so having that, and this is where I think our game lacks. Is just the understanding of the mental side of the game, what imposter syndrome is, what the concept of psychological safety. I think the best coach that's ever understood this for me has been Steve Hart. And I'm not just saying this because he and I are best mates. I think we're best mates for a reason. We have an understanding of these things and the importance of them. And the thing I love the most about Steve as a coach and just as a friend is the fact that he makes you feel psychologically safe with him, really quite naturally. And by psychologically safe, all I mean by that is you feel safe enough to be able to go and have any conversation with that person, whether it be a tough conversation, a fun conversation, and a conversation that might have some unknowns wrapped around it. You feel safe enough to go and have that conversation. Now, when you have imposter syndrome, there's no such thing as psychological safety if you have that.
So talk me through imposter syndrome. That's where you're feeling of you don't belong.
Yeah.
You feel like you're in an environment that you shouldn't be in.
Yeah. So look, I had that in business for a number of years. I was lucky enough to have some incredibly smart, gifted business mentors. At the time, I had imposter syndrome. I was getting asked into meetings. I was too scared to say things because I was worried that if I said them, people would just look at me and go,
be a detriment to your career.
Dinga, what's he doing here? You know, he shouldn't be in here. He doesn't even understand what's going on. And that's how bad it got. Now, ironically, that was at exactly the same time that I was playing into a cricket for New Zealand. So it was easy for me to go to that imposter syndrome place. And it was really just this part where you feel like an imposter. You feel like you got lucky you made the team. You know, you feel like you didn't belong there. And it felt like no matter how hard you worked, you still wouldn't belong there. You wouldn't make the mark, and you wouldn't be good enough. And so the reason I mentioned Steve Hart just around that is because he seems to have this ability to recognise that and gets that out of you quite quickly. And so I just think that we spend a lot of time practicing our skills. We spend a lot of time executing skills. We spend a lot of time facing balls, bowling balls, you know, slapping balls, throwing balls. We don't spend very much time sitting down and just understanding the mental side of the game and talking through the fact that there are going to be moments where we doubt ourselves. There are going to be moments where we're going to be overconfident. There are going to be moments where we could be interpreted as looking across the room at another teammate, you know, and have our look, our glance, as a disapproving look, even though that's not our intention.
That's not the intention.
You know, and so the awareness of body language and how that plays a role in confidence. So if he's not that confident, he's standing at the top of his mark, and he looks around at guys he interprets guys in the field as being, oh God, Dinga's going to bowl here, this could go anywhere, boys. You know what I mean? So I don't know what the answers necessarily are or the right ways of walking players through how to become mentally stronger. But I know that I think the starting point of that is trying to get a bit of an understanding of where players are mentally. Because if you have a guy that turns up here at Nationals who's potentially suffering from depression or has a mental illness, you know, there are so many triggers for that, and I've suffered from that myself, and there are so many triggers for that just the wrong look can ruin somebody's day. Now, it gets really difficult for how do you know you've looked at somebody wrong? How do you know that that person over there has got a mental illness? How do you know that that person's struggling?
Well, you can't control that. You can only control your own intentions, and if your own intentions are misinterpreted, you can't control those misinterpretations, except for the fact that if you recognise it's happened, you can perhaps address it and make sure that the right intentions are understood.
Yeah. Look, if you recognise it, you can do something about it. If you're aware of that as a concept, then you open yourself up to the ability to interpret perhaps a poor interpretation of your own behaviour or what have you. I think sometimes what might make this not necessarily maybe easier to understand or easier to be aware of is when you've had your own struggles, and when you've gone through those things. I think it can make it a little bit easier for you to be aware of, if my actions are this, how might they be interpreted? And if they might be interpreted poorly, then I might choose to change my actions. And again, I guess that's one of the reasons why I try to, and I will always never get this right, and I'll never be perfect with any of these things, but I am definitely more aware of, when I meet somebody, I like to look at them in the eyes, I like to shake their hand, hit them on the shoulder or something like that, and really intently listen to what they're saying, ask them how they are, how's their family. It's for me, it's about trying to make connections with people, and worthwhile connections that mean something, because that's actually what the sport is talking. I was talking to you before about comradeship and the meaning of the sport for me is about meeting people and forging new relationships, and I just love that. I love that, but it's tough. The mental side of the game is tough. The great thing is though, mate, going to the World Cup soon, and I know there is not a chance in hell that I'm turning up in South Africa feeling like an imposter. I can't wait to get there. I cannot wait to get there.
You're going to be really important in that unit. You know that. You're going to play a big role.
Well, I want to. Like I'm turning up there wanting to. And that's awesome, because that's very good for my confidence. And so I can't wait. There's not a single thing that somebody can say to me over there that's going to put me off. There is not a single thing.
I don't think you'll get much of that there.
Yeah, I don't think it will.
It's not
about that, is it?
Yeah. Have you haven't played Masters before, have you? No. Matt Henderson asked me this as well in our previous podcast together, and he wanted to know what it was like, because he hadn't played it before, and it's slightly, it's not Test cricket. It's slightly slower, but you are playing guys that want to be there just as much, if not more, than you, and they're representing their country, and it's tough. And it's not tough through words; it's tough through actions, and it's tough through body language, and it's tough through decision making that they make when you've got them under heat. And it's good cricket. It's good cricket in that regard, but there's not so much talk. The Aussie guys in Birmingham weren't lippy. There wasn't much chat. There was a lot of chat. Look, there was a little bit of chat through you, maybe, so player to player, but not directed at you, but you heard it. But it wasn't bad stuff. And then in Tauranga, when we played our Trans-Tasman, well, I suppose it was because we were a better unit and we were winning, so there wasn't a lot to talk about from their point of view. But even the 40s, the 40s Australian side, which are a very good side, and I'm sure they'll be very, very good in South Africa. They're just very much about what they do, I think, and they have a lot of fun around each other and really enjoy it and know how good they are and go out there to try and prove it every time they bowl, every time they bat, every time they field, So a little less about the chat, I think.
I'm looking forward to that, and like in this tournament here, getting to face the Sonny Chan. I relish now walking out with a bat, standing at the popping crease and looking at the best bowler on the opposition side standing at the top of his mark, coming in to bowl at me. That's when I'm just like, this moment, this is where I want to be. This moment has been designed for me, and this moment is not one that I'm going to let slip by me. Although Sonny came in first ball yesterday and gave me a second calf. He hit me on the calf muscle and it bruised up quite nicely. And as you know, Kelsey. I've got very small calf muscles, and so it looked like I had two last night. But but next ball he bowls a short ball, and it was in the wires, and it was like you beauty. I just love facing real competitors. So I can't wait to go and play the Australians. So I can't wait. I've got a bit of unfinished business there, and
that Aussie footy side will be good.
Yeah.
That'll be good, and I think there'll be a couple of South African guys from that 35s World Cup last time that may be there. It's in South Africa. You think they'd probably be available to go up into that 40s unit, and good, man. Like, they're good, and you come off really respecting them, and the Sri Lankan guys as well. There's a lot of the guys on the test side, the men's side that play in the Masters as well, and they're good. They're good quality, man. So I hope you get tested out really well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Man, so we've done well, bro. It's a little bit, but now hour 10, we've done good, man.
Sweet.
That's been good.
Yeah.
We've got plenty to talk about, I'm sure, in future times. So I hope we get together again and have a good chat.
Love to talk to you about the haka and a few other things.
Hey, we can talk about the haka, man. Like, what's it like leading it? Because you led the haka for us, and I don't think, I want to say this with respect, because we've had very good people doing it with Robbie Bird and past squads that I've been a part of. But you've led the haka, and you were very, very dominating and very good at it, sir.
Mate, it was the concept of doing the haka for me. I remember the conversation with Boise and Bots. In actual fact, when the team got named that night, not far from here, actually, the team got named that night. Bots asked, he said, how does everybody feel about the haka? There are a few guys that were like, no, not keen. And I was like, I'm dead keen. I said, because I've spent my life wanting to put a silver fern on my chest. And I've seen the All Blacks, the greatest example of wearing a silver fern, in my opinion, for us, across sports, lead the haka. And I've always wanted to lead the haka. And knowing that the indoor cricket men's team for New Zealand does the haka, it's been something I've dreamt of doing. And so I had this opportunity to do it. And at the time, my brother was working for a company called She Interactive, which is now Pickpot in New Zealand. He was a games producer. And they just so happened to be making the Jonah Lomu rugby game.
Oh, wow.
I believe it was. And so they had the guy that was training the All Blacks at that time on how to do the haka. He came in and trained us on how to do the haka. And I remember, actually, it may have been the second to it. It may have been before we went to the World Cup.
I remember a guy came in and training us in one of our camps. Yeah,
the hotel.
I remember that. Yeah.
So he came and did it, and the cool thing was he talked to us about the meaning of the haka and what it actually meant. And I remember the guys that weren't that keen on doing it saw, they saw what it meant to the likes of myself and a number of other players in the team. And so they put their hands up and said, yeah, let's do this. Because the guy that came in and challenged us with that haka, he came in and said, look, unless you're all keen to do it, you're not doing
forget it.
You shouldn't do it, And so to have that opportunity to do the haka, and I don't know if it was my passion or the fact that I was really trying to drive to get the haka as a not just done, but done properly, done the way it's meant to be done to pay homage to all of those people that had done the haka before, done to pay homage to where the haka comes from. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a Kiwi, mate. So part of my history is Maori. Part of my history is what this country's been built on. It's something I'm very, very proud of. And so to have that opportunity to do it, not just to do it, but to lead it, that's a life-defining moment for me. It literally is. And what it means to me is more than I could ever really explain. And to do it, I think it was the 11 World Cup final with Rat, to co-lead it with Rat. And that final was just awesome. Like, we changed a little bit at the beginning of the haka. We were inspired by the Kiwi League team, who do a phenomenal
I think the best. I really love what the All Blacks have done with Kapa Ohanga, but I dig watching Isaac Luke, man. Like, probably one of the. It's got to be the best haka of all time. He's so passionate and just amazing. I had a great conversation with Vic about this, Victor Davies, and because I brought it up, they didn't do the haka with his Trans-Tasman. They didn't do the haka in Singapore either, but they did talk about it quite a bit. And the final decision was made that they wouldn't do it. But it wasn't a case of them not wanting to do it so much. It was a case as it was about respect of the situation, and they thought very early on, and I totally agree with this as well, because you think about when you do the haka, it takes so much out of you. I've seen guys cry when they do the haka. I almost well up times watching it.
Yeah.
When people I care about performing it, or I see someone in an emotional situation and they have it done to them, like you see league stars retiring or whatever, and they see their friends and family do it to them. Like, that's just amazing culture, amazing Māori heritage, which I have a massive passion for. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that I live in a country that's like that.
Yeah.
But Victor felt that it was more about the situation, and he actually raised a point that perhaps they should save it and do it after matches, whether they win or lose, whether it's a final or a semi-final. If the time's right, they've got crowd there, they want to respect the crowd, they want to respect themselves and their performance, they want to respect their opposition. Those were the values that he had for the performance of the haka. And to my point before, I was going to say, you do it before pre-match, you know how much it takes out of you. You've then got to go and bat under that intensity of emotion.
Yep.
It's tough, man. Like you got not only got to bat against Australia or bat against some really good opposition in a test match, you've done the haka for, like, it takes so much out of you. And for a lot of guys, if you can control that, and you know that you need to control those levels, and you can bring yourself back into your zone nice and quickly. I mean, you end up having about 3 minutes after a haka to get into a performance. Then great, that's fine. For a lot of guys, man, it's tough. And so Victor had this idea, maybe they do it post-match. And I loved that idea. I thought it was an amazing
You
thought.
might not sleep that night, depending on...
You might not sleep, but again, it's, the All Blacks do it for a reason. It's a challenge.
Yep.
Maybe perhaps these ideas around doing a haka post-match isn't so much around the challenge. It's about giving back to those people who have been around them and themselves as well, and showing respect.
Yeah. Look,
So
I've always sort of pondered that concept. My personal preference is the original meaning behind the haka is it's a challenge. And so it's designed to be a challenge before going into
battle.
And so that has always been my preference for when it's done, and it always will be, because that was the original intent behind it. I've actually always wanted to talk to New Zealand Sevens guys or the New Zealand Sevens girls just around why they do it after a win, and only ever after they win a tournament.
They take their shirts off too, so.
Wow, yeah, that's right. They're quite ripped
because they
can. Yeah, there's bread baskets all over the joint.
Yeah, that's right.
But I've always wanted to have a chat with them to just understand why. And I totally agree with Victor around the concept of it being situational. And you should only do it when you can pay it the respect that it deserves, because it deserves respect. And the underlying fact is, the reason I love doing it, the reason I have so much respect for it, is because, and we've still, as a country, got a lot of things to get right in regards to how Maori and Pākehā in this country came about to coexist, and the things that were wrong. We still have a lot to learn, but I love the fact that, as a general rule of thumb, from my perspective, we embrace our culture, and we call it our culture. We don't shunt those that were here before us to one side and make them feel like lesser humans. And I have no respect or time for people who do that. And so I love the fact that, as a country, and like I say, we've still got plenty to learn, and we still don't do it as well as we could do. But I love the fact that we still try, we still do our best, and we still do it in a lot of regards. Because this is about coexistence, and it's about learning from each other, and it's about getting the most out of those experiences. Because man, we have some cool experiences, bro. We got to do the haka together for New Zealand. It's a lifelong memory, and the meaning behind that, and the fact that we did it before we went into battle together, and all of those things. It's a very, very powerful thing, and it does pull people together. There's a lot more to the haka than a lot of people just. It's not just a battle cry. It's about how it cements relationships. It's about how it brings people together. Brings people together for the battle. It cements things. But just very randomly, if you don't mind, I just wanted to get back to one point that's been sitting in the back of my head since he mentioned Pepsi's name.
Awesome.
I'll never forget this. We were in this restaurant in Brisbane on that tour, and the restaurant was packed, people everywhere. And bizarrely, an Australian obviously thought this was a good idea. They would make the walls of the toilets glass.
Oh,
so
yeah.
mirror on one side.
Yeah.
And so the men's urinal was literally, you would wee against the glass.
Yeah.
And on the other side of that glass were people sitting having their dinner. And I'll never forget, Pepsi, I hope you forgive me for saying this, but I'll never forget. This is one of the moments where Pepsi and I think sealed the very interesting relationship that we have. But we were standing there going for a wee. And I remember Pepsi looked at me and he goes, Dinga, do you think that lady in there wants wee soup for an entree? And peed directly towards where her soup
bowl would have been.
And it was just like, Pepsi and I are in hysterics. And one of the staff came in, not that, because nobody could see through the glass, it was mirror on one side, it was one way, but one of the staff came in and was like, guys, we get people doing that every night. It's not that funny. It's just hilarious, but I'll never forget that. I don't think I've ever gone for a wee quite so many times in a single dinner.
Sure.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
That's brilliant.
One of the great.
It's superb, man. Great note to end it on.
Yeah, man.
It's superb, man. I love you so much.
You
Thank
too,
you
brother.
so much for your time, man.
Pleasure.
I hope we do this again, and I really
Please.
appreciate it, man. You're amazing. So,
Thanks.
yeah, this has
So-
been great. We're really looking forward to this too, man.
Yeah,
So
I love the fact you're
that's
doing
cool.
this, man. This is a very cool idea. There's a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, there's a lot of insight, there's a lot of perspective that resides in these things, and I love the fact that you're getting it out, and that people can digest it and enhance their own perspectives. So it's a very cool thing.
That's cool, man. Thank
Very
you.
cool.
That's awesome, man. Thanks,
Great,
brother.
brother.